one of the most important poets we have in Italy today. What is his originality? In Italy, we've had for the last century something which is called civic poetry, pertaining to the world of politics, culture, humanity. It has always tended towards the right, conservative and nationalistic. The great originality of Pasolini is that of making civic poetry tend towards the left, making a fusion between Marxism and social decadence. It has the great originality and quality of having absorbed all aspects of everyday living. The novels and the films of Pasolini resemble each other. But since Pasolini has become a filmmaker, he no longer writes novels. He makes films and writes poetry. His novels have the great merit of truthfully revealing the world of the Roman slum dweller.
It is misleading to divorce Pasolini's work in the cinema from his other work, particularly his writing, poetry, novels, and criticism. Like Robert Grillet and Kluge, Pasolini was a writer before he was a film director.
I must say, I still hold reservations on the possibility of the comprehension of Pasolini's films by the underdeveloped people to whom his message seems to be directed.
In the cinema, Pasolini began with 2 or 3 films using the same themes as in his novels. The novels are The Ragazzi and A Violent Life. They describe the Roman slums, and the films Acatone and La Ricotta are also about the slums. Pasolini also made a series of cultural films. He made films of the myths of Medea, Oedipus Rex, and Jesus Christ. These are films of a man with a great sensitivity towards painting, revealing a very figurative and pictorial content. They also show great sensibility for a contemporary interpretation of the ancient myths.
Pasolini's cinema is clearly in the tradition of Rossellini, Dreyer, and Mitsukushi, if only in its juxtaposition of the natural and the supernatural. I, Cesare Zavattini, having been watching the conflict for a number of years ever since Pasolini entered the world of filmmaking, a conflict between Pasolini the writer and Pasolini the filmmaker. It is a conflict in which Pasolini the filmmaker tries to reconcile with Pasolini the writer.
Ma fino a questo momento, a mio modesto avviso, non l'ha ancora raggiunto.
The Gospel according to St. Matthew. In Pasolini's film, The Gospel According to St. Matthew, Christ is an intellectual in a world of poor potential revolutionaries. When he told the story of Christ, he didn't see him as he really was. Had he have done so, he would not have produced a religious film because he is not a believer. He doesn't believe Christ is the Son of God. Pasolini wanted to tell the story of Christ plus 2,000 years of Christian theology. In Acatone, he was telling the story in the first person. The Gospel was not telling the story in the same way. Pasolini, a non-believer, was telling the story through the eyes of a believer. The Gospel is full of contradictions. They are essential. They enrich the story. Basically, Matthew is the most earthly of all the evangelists, and also the most revolutionary. He is the closest to understanding the problems of a historical epoch which Christ created. I remember it took Pasolini 3 years to raise the money to make the Gospel. 20th century Palestine was full of light industry and the kibbutzim, so he shot the film in southern Italy. He'd been looking for over a year for an actor to interpret the figure of Christ, and was about to choose a German actor, but met Enrique Irazoki, a young Spanish student from Madrid University. No one in Italy reads the Gospel. The film suggests that Italians begin to read it.
I had a strong love for my father until the age of 3. The fundamental task I set myself is that of being rigorously disciplined. By this I mean rigorously disciplined as an intellectual. I was decidedly a Marxist straight after the war. I had to defend myself against an excess in clarity, against an excess of familiarity and almost banality. My problem is an artistic one, a formal one, and art, as you very well know, is never clear. My films are the works of an author with very singular individual characteristics. I've never talked about the importance of the family. I'm against the family. The family is an archaic remnant. During my childhood, I had certain conflicts with my family, whose background was definitely middle class. My father represented the worst element I could imagine. It's rather difficult to talk about my relationship with my father and mother because I know something about psychoanalysis. What I can say is that I have a great love for my mother. My origins are fairly typical of petty bourgeois Italian society. I'm a product of the unity of Italy as a republic. I've never wanted to make a conclusive statement. I've always posed various problems and left them open to consideration. I've stated various times that Oedipus Rex is an autobiography. My father, who was an officer, and my mother was more or less like the woman in the film, played by Silvana Mangano. I live the Oedipus complex in a kind of laboratory fashion, in an almost elementary and schematic way. When I make a film, I'm always in reality, among the trees and among the people like yourselves. There's no symbolic or conventional filter between me and reality as there is in literature. The cinema is an explosion of my love for reality. I have never conceived of making a film that would be the work of a group. I've always thought of film as the work of an author. Not only the script and the direction, but the choice of sets and locations, the characters, even the clothes. I choose everything, not to mention the music.
Quasi come in laboratorio, in maniera quasi elementare, schematica direi, ma è anche molto poco autobiografico, in quanto che la mia autobiografia in questo momento non mi interessa quasi niente.
Ma è stato casualmente, io andavo a fare il bagno al fiume.
I was going to take a swim in the river and I saw him with a bicycle. It was in 1950, straight after he came to Rome. Well, we started to talk and he told me he was a writer and I said, so am I. I felt instinctively that this man was a genius. And he was true and real. Each of us has to have the courage to accept a person in whom we can believe, who gives one faith. I believe in Pasolini, and he has given me a lot of faith. If I hadn't known him, I might have become a thief or a gangster. Who knows? It's really very difficult to talk about Pasolini. Pasolini wrote scripts with me because I came from the slums. He even gave me the courage to become a film director. And he told me, you'll see, Sergio, you'll be subjected to racism like your brother Franco.
Lui, Pasolini, ha dato il coraggio di fare addirittura il regista. Dove mi aveva detto, vedrai Sergio, sarai soggetto di un razzismo, come è stato tuo fratello, sarai tu. Uno addirittura ai critici, quelli del cinema italiano, che non capiscono niente.
Those Italian film critics who don't understand a thing speak badly of him. And those who speak well of him do so to attack those who speak badly of him. The critics never ask how one made a film, how many millions, how much time, what actors, nothing. They never ask a single important thing. I've just made my own film, Austria. I've used fifth-rate actors. Pasolini never has. He has used a dolly. I never have. Pasolini has used a zoom. I never have. Pasolini has moved the camera and taken pan shots. I've never moved the camera. So how can it be said that